Okay. So one of the things, Jesus, that I'm thinking a lot about in general lately is hope. Um, and the first thing I always think about when I think about hope is Miriam Kaba, who is an organizer, an author. You should definitely follow their work. If you don't know who they are, look them up. Uh, Talks about hope as a discipline, which I've always really liked as someone whose brain is much more wired towards the negative. Thinking of hope as something I can actively choose and participate in has always been really helpful for me. And also what I know about hope from like the neuroscience and the research is that hope is good for our health. Like hope helps people live longer um, and recover from things that they wouldn't have recovered from if they weren't hopeful. Um, so I've been thinking about that and thinking about how all of that kind of intersects with racism and imperialism and capitalism, and how like it's so much harder for marginalized people to have hope, so much more work, it's so much more of a discipline. And just of how that is another way that systemic violence is happening all of the time. Like it makes it impossible for the global majority, for people of the global majority to engage in hope and not get caught in despair because they're constantly experiencing violence and microaggressions and additional adversity and access challenges and like policing and violence. Like it's just constant all the time. Which is often why I look to those communities for education and guidance around building a practice of hope, building a practice of joy, building a practice of pleasure, because just frankly, they're better at it than white people. And it's often built into their cultures, which like whiteness stripped white folks of their actual cultures. And it's definitely not part of white culture to be actively working towards hope or for change in any kind of way. So if you are a white person in the world right now and you are struggling and you are feeling hopeless and you are really feeling the grief of the multiple atrocities that are happening in different places in the world right now, or the genocide that's happening in Palestine or Yemen, you know, I want you to know that it's your responsibility to find ways to center yourself, to find ways to build your capacity for these conversations, to find ways to build your capacity for not turning away and not shutting down and not numbing out in the name of self-care. And to build your capacity to sit with the discomfort and the reaction that happens inside of your body on a somatic cellular level before you do anything with it in the world. We need to work through that shit with white people. We need to build way more capacity and skill to be able to stay in that discomfort and care for ourselves, and also dig into what that discomfort needs from us, because it doesn't necessarily need us to like tell the other person that they're wrong or get defensive or reject everything the other person's saying. You're just uncomfortable. You're not actually unsafe when you're talking to your loved ones about hard things. And knowing how to support yourself in that so that you can hang into the conversation, so that you can be active and participating in advocacy work, in calling your representatives, in emailing your representatives, in showing up and showing out for movement marches if you can, or those are accessible to you. You know, talking about it online cool, great. But at least we need to at least be bearing witness, because we have responsibility in this. Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, whether we support it or not, we have responsibility in this. Like, we have complicity in this. So if, like, the people in Palestine right now are asking for us to be listening and learning and paying attention and like providing a sacred witness, in my definition or words, providing sacred witness to their suffering and their pain. Like, they barely have power, they barely have internet. They are and have been experiencing like consistent bombing, just like more bombs than the US dropped on Afghanistan in a year, in like the span of a week. And they are still finding ways to share their stories, share their truths, and like, they're asking us to witness them. They're asking us to be with them in the pain and not look away. So I think it's the least we could do. I really do. And I know that you're more than capable of doing it. Like, I know that you can absolutely regulate your way through that discomfort and that dysregulation and activation that comes. And that activation is like required and helpful and functional in this moment, because people are dying and your actions matter and your words matter and your choices matter. I think it's also really interesting to look at the ways that we perpetuate this same type of violence in our own country, our own people. And the way that whiteness and all white people automatically have internal biases against Blackness and anyone darker than us. Like, anti-Blackness is very real. Implicit bias is very real, and we all have it. It's not like a good person, bad person thing. It's just part of whiteness. It's just part of how this all works at this point. So it doesn't matter that it's made up. It doesn't matter that it's not real. People are living with the real effects of these made up concepts. And white folks are not doing the emotional labor. We're not doing our fair share of the emotional labor in this moment. We're shutting down, we're freezing, we're turning away, and we're offloading all of the grief and all of the processing and all of the emotional labor on the people who are already paying the highest price. And that's bullshit. So I hope that you can find ways to be more responsible for yourself and your reactions and your biases. And I hope that you can find ways to be centered enough to be open when someone is sharing their pain with you, because it's always a gift and it's always an honor to get to witness and just like be with somebody in that for 60 seconds. And you can decide how you do that. You can decide like how that can work for you. You can build up capacity slowly and whatever. Now you can't really build up capacity slowly because it's just fucking happening, and it's been going on for 75 years. So I don't know how long you think you need to build capacity for. I haven't been alive that long. But I hope something from this may be helpful for someone, and that you can turn towards hope for a better world, for a better response from yourself, for like hope that you can build these capacities, hope that you can build these skills, hope that you can honor and grieve the pain that people are sharing with you, because it is part of our responsibility as human beings and as people who are paying for this genocide in the US. So